morning, winners, and welcome to the Wrong Button podcast. I am joined once again by the other end of the couch co-op,
Hey,
Nick,
what's up?
and we're going to talk about something dear to your heart and near to my heart: swords.
I don't like them that much, but yeah, they're pretty cool.
What do you mean you don't like them that much?
I don't know. I mean, I would rather have a gun, but
All right, I mean, as an adult, practicality speaking, I think most of us would have like a firearm, like whether
yeah.
real or fictional, that we'd rather have. But you can't tell me when you were a kid and you saw somebody like cut a bullet in half with a sword,
Oh
or
yeah.
someone pulled out a katana, that like you weren't all aboard that hype train.
I mean, definitely. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I wasn't, but as I've grown older, I mean, I'd still be pretty scared if somebody fucking whipped out a sword. I'd be like, okay, yeah, it's time for me to leave this area because there's a fucking ninja here.
See, I have a dueling tunic that I like to keep around because like my favorite thing is anytime someone would be like, especially at work, and my manager goes, "Well, I disagree with you," and I sit there and I go, "Well, broadswords at dawn." Because what do you say to that? It's like, do you say yes and hope that I don't show up with two broadswords,
Right?
or do
Or
you?
you say yes, you get overconfident and killed by this guy who's like a sword master, and you didn't realize.
Oh, my manager is not a sword master. He has high blood pressure. I do not think he would be able to use a sword that well. This is going to be the one podcast he listens to.
Yeah, right. Your luck.
That's okay. I didn't throw his name out there. Um, yeah, but I figured we would talk about swords because you and I are currently going through Metal Gear
Revengeance.
Rising:
Yeah.
Revengeance, and in an episode coming up, I had my only like real critique about any design thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Was to the fact that Raiden went from this interesting enough sword
Oh yeah, to just a
to a
katana.
katana.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Especially like coming off of when we get to Sam's, because you're right, Sam's is the same thing, it's just red, but that M4 hilt that fires the sword out at
Yeah.
like
Fast
that,
enough speeds. Yeah.
yeah, that to me does it. Now, Nick, what is your I do not know the history of the sword. However,
Okay.
I can tell you the literary history of like the sword. Are you familiar with any of that?
You know, you gave me a little bit of reading material, and I tried to look at it, and I had too many other things going on at once. So what I ended up doing was getting confused and dropping everything. So I have two Wikipedias pulled up here for The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is a book
Hmm.
you told me to look up and look at. And I sort of thumb through the Wikipedia article, and I also have the hero's journey sort of uh, I guess literary um, tool.
Hmm.
Tool is probably not the right word. Literary thing pulled up on Wikipedia as well.
Yes. Um, and funny enough, I actually have the book here with Thousand Faces in front of me because
Hmm.
why wouldn't I? This is one of the few times where I'm like, oh, my degree, I can do this. I can talk about this. I can do this. It's not useless. Here, the hero's journey has a pretty. Once I say it, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You have the call to adventure.
You know, I'm looking at this little diagram right here, and when I looked at it yesterday, I was like, "Oh, that makes total sense," and I've definitely seen that before.
Yeah, probably not since like grade school or something, but like
Yeah,
call to adventure, refusal to call, supernatural aid, the crossing of the first threshold, the belly of the whale, and then one of the final ones is the refusal to return, the magic flight, the rescue from without, the crossing of the return threshold, master of two worlds, and then freedom to live. And then the final one is actually like, um, no, I kind of just have to fuck off because I can't go back to the world that
I've
I
been
can't I
like
can't
absorbed by the journey. Now I
Mhm.
like, oh, okay,
The greatest or the greatest like the easiest one is called the Scouring of the Shire. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan,
okay,
Frodo goes on this long epic journey. So do Sari. So do Mary, Sam, and Pippin,
hmm,
and they go through. They literally save the world from the ultimate evil that they've ever known,
yeah,
that's plagued them for generations, and then they go back. Um, and like Merry and Pippin go back, and like a rogue band of goblins or orcs or bandits like take over, and they're human size,
Mm-hmm.
and they literally go through and just kill them. They're like, yeah, like
Shit.
seriously, we've been fighting Orkai. Like, what do you, or
Yeah, that's
Uruk-hai, like, what do
true.
you have? Yeah.
What are you exactly?
And then Frodo, he gets back and he leaves. But um, the part that I want to focus on, since we're talking about swords, is, do you know what the sword in literary canon almost represents universally?
Not, I do not. I'm not going to even pretend I do.
That's fine. It's your inheritance. Um,
Interesting.
you get a sword because normally, think about, let's go to the most prolific swords out there. I got two in mind, and I can go out to a few others to even do that as well.
Okay.
Um, First sword, Excalibur.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can go into a brief history of that. Excalibur was Uther Pendragon's sword. It was gifted to him by the Lady of the Lake. He
Mm-hmm.
stabs it into a rock, and he says, "Whoever shall pull the sword shall hence be known forth as king."
Yeah.
Hence, King Arthur pulls it and
Becomes king.
becomes king. He gets his father's blessing.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to take that back further,
Mm.
and we're gonna do a bit of a pull because this one is a little bit different. The fall of Troy, right?
Okay.
The Greeks are sacking Troy because the Trojan horse gets in there, right?
Right.
Priam, who is the king of Troy, grabs the sword of Troy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is this gorgeous sword with this great hilt, and he gives it to son of Aphro. Hang on, I gotta look this up. Aphrodite. I think it's no, it's not Eros. Um,
I have no idea what it is, so this is all you, man.
uh, it all right. He ends up giving it to the son. I think it's the son of Aphrodite, who is one of the Trojan soldiers,
Okay.
and Aphrodite whisks him away. And he says, "Whoever shall hold this sword shall be able to found a new Troy."
And I've never heard of that before.
Hmm. And they leave. The Greeks come in. Troy gets destroyed. The Odyssey happens. Then you get the Aeneid.
Hmm.
Um, the Aeneid is the story of Aeneas
Mm-hmm.
and the founding of what would become the Roman Empire. Right?
Interesting.
Roman sounds kind of like Trojan, a little bit off, but
Hmm.
similar. And takes the sword of Troy to create the sword of Rome. And then when the Gaul,
Gaul.
the Gaul.
Gaul.
Thank you. Yeah,
Gaul.
thank you.
Yeah.
When the Gaul start ransacking all of the Roman Empire, and we know the Romans made it all the way to uh, to Britannia, to the
To
Greater
everywhere.
Britannian,
Yeah.
yeah, to the Greater Britannian Empire. The sword of Troy makes it there, and once it falls into the hands of
Mm.
one Uther Pendragon, who
Becomes
stabs it into a
Excalibur.
sword and becomes Excalibur. So it's this,
Interesting.
yeah, it's a really long line of that, and then like let's go from there. Let's take on Star Wars. Um,
Okay.
what was okay? Let's start here before we go into that one. What was your what was the first time you saw a sword and you're like, oh my god, that's so cool?
Holy shit. Probably middle school. Like when like Naruto was still big and like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like the shonen manga and like anime was still big, like Bleach and all that.
Zabuza
So
and his giant sword and like the
exactly. Yeah.
that's
So
a really good
probably
one.
around that time, just probably like early puberty when I started getting like angsty and shit. It's probably when I found a cool interest in swords if I had to pick exactly when.
And if somebody really wants to take a look into this, they can also now do a psychoanalysis of Freud with us talking about swords and you talking about
Yeah,
puberty.
exactly. Great.
We're
I've
gonna,
unlocked that door. Wonderful.
um, but yeah, it like for me it was Star Wars. Like I can go back to when Luke turned on this lightsaber that can cut through anything, it can deflect bullets.
Hmm.
Um, that was amazing. And then the lightsaber he gets is Excalibur. It's his father's lightsaber. It's gifted to
Yeah,
him
I
to
figured that's where you
become
were
the last.
going with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and stuff like that. So that was always really cool. And then you also read Redwall.
Yeah, Red Robe. Oh, I guess you're right. Okay, yeah, because the Sword of Martin ends up. in
Matthias's hands?
yeah, I think his name, yeah, Matthias. Yeah, and then after that point, because that's not canonically the first, but that's sort of where like the story has a jumping off point. But like, yeah, every other Abbey warrior is like, oh, thanks, last person who had the sword. There's still blood on it, but
Really?
yeah.
See, I read The Legend of Luke, I read Martin the Warrior, I
Hmm.
read Redwall. I
Those
don't
three
think
are very, very intertwined because they all have something to do with Martin the Warrior, who is like
yeah.
God basically to these mice.
And then I read Moral Fox.
Marl Fox. I've only read that once, and it was a long fucking time ago. I don't
I
remember
read
what
that like
it's
three
about.
times. It was actually my first Redwall book.
Oh, yeah. My first
And
was
I
Redwall proper. I feel like I started out in a good spot.
You did, or I'm gonna say you did, because like I read Moral Fox and it wasn't until I found out it was part of a series because I remember being confused through it. I was like in
Yeah,
fifth
they're
or
making
sixth grade.
references to things I don't quite understand.
Exactly. But you and I are going through this, and I had the critique where it went from a sword, or it went from this really unique style of sword, like it
Hmm.
was still kind of katana esque, but it was like
It
a
was a
K
long. I
bar,
mean, it looked like a long, yeah, like K-bar or like generic combat knife with like the parachute cord wrapped around the handle.
which to me I'm like, oh well, yeah, the K bar's been in service since World War II, I think is when
Probably.
that blade came out
I
and
mean,
was like
knives like that have been around probably since we realized that a sharp barb could do more damage. You know.
probably, um, and just but like being like I'm gonna extend it and then I'm gonna make a sword is like I'm here for it.
Exactly. It looks so cool.
It really does. And then we go to Sam's.
Hmm.
Um, now, do you have a favorite sword in that game so far?
Yeah, Sam's definitely just. Well, I mean, I'm a sucker for the color red anyway.
Okay, I
So,
get that. I'm honestly surprised it didn't turn purple when you touched it. Like since your stuff is all blue and your electricity, like you're doing it is
oh
blue. I'm like, oh, it'd be cool. It'd be a purple sword. Nah, it's not gonna happen.
no, I think purple would be kind of like. You just love purple. I think you need more. I think you just want more representation of the color purple in your favorite things.
I do love the color purple. However, cyan is a great color for everything else. Like if it's futuristic, put cyan on it.
Oh yeah.
Um, now, uh, now, do you have? And we'll talk like intermittently about like different swords out there. Do you have a style of sword? Because uh, your favorite manga is Berserk.
Berserk. Yeah.
Um, what? So let's talk about that because you've shown me some of the swords in that. What is? And I cannot remember the name of it, and I apologize. What is the name of Guts's primary sword towards
Dragon
the end?
Slayer.
Dragon Slayer.
Hmm.
Actually used to slay a dragon.
No. Was
It
supposed
was
to be.
it was
I don't know.
supposed to be.
The king at that time was like, "Hey, make me a sword that can kill a dragon," and everybody was like, "You got it. I'll make a sword made of gold. It has all these jewels." And the blacksmith was like, "Well, that's fucking stupid. That's not going to kill a dragon." So he just made big sword made out of heavy material, put a sharp edge on it, and said, "Called it a day." Pretty much, just put it on a stick.
If I'm not saying that sword is technically a Zanpakuto. Zanpak.
I guess
It's
technically it
a
has been used to cut through horses.
yeah.
It's an
I don't know how does
anti-cavalry weapon.
yeah how does because Guts uses that with one hand several times, correct?
No, I mean in like the early chapters, but like there's only so far you can suspend your disbelief.
Fair enough.
You
I
know,
can.
like in
I,
like the very first chapter, he holds it in his mouth, and I'm like, well, that's fucking stupid.
I mean, have you ever seen One Piece?
Well, I mean, there's like magic and shit in that, right? Well, to be fair, there's magic in Berserk, but like that was a terrible example.
He's got three katanas. This is his Zanpakuto. No, I
Yeah.
get that. I feel you. Um, do you have a style of sword that you're like, hey, this?
Yeah, I mean, big swords are just cool, like claymores, Zweihanders, flamberges. I mean, I just think they're all just anything that is big and okay. I'm not gonna say big and long because that's gonna be taken out of context by everyone,
Big,
including
long, hard.
exactly used to penetrate definitely.
More of a thrusting weapon than a slashing weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, big swords aren't really good for cutting. Yeah, I guess you're right.
I want you to know, everyone, Mrs. Play is like looking at me. We already made the Freud joke earlier.
Hmm.
Now I'm going to throw this out there, the brief like behind the curtains here.
I'm not looking at you. I'm staring at you very unimpressed fashion.
Last night you're like, hey, can you send me some material on what you were going to go on? You
Hmm.
sat here and dropped like 6 names of swords, and I'm like, oh yeah, that is a type of sword. So
Uh-huh.
is that like not just like a broadsword or a zanpakuto
No.
or a katana? You're like, no, here's a flamberge. Here's and the subtle differences in them all. Like,
Yeah. I like flambears just because they look cool, because they look like wavy.
is that the one that almost looks like a crisp where it has like it's like the wave like it's a wavelength going up and out almost?
I'm about to send you a picture.
Oh, okay. Mrs. Play actually sent me a picture of the Masumun sword, which is the traditional sword that became the katana, by the
Masamune.
master swordsmith in Japan. And there's some really like interesting.
Oh, you recently piqued me into that katanas are dog shit.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know what you're talking about. The flambears. It's almost like the
Wavy, yeah.
yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not that they're it's not that they're dog shit. The so the big thing, if you look at Japanese techniques, Japanese knives, Japanese like
Mhm.
metallurgy, right, where they're forming it. You know how the katana is done by folding it over on itself,
Folding it,
right?
yeah.
So the ore that they were working with and how they were smelting it, they couldn't get hot enough to get out a lot
Oh,
of the
yeah.
impurities.
Yeah.
So their
Yeah, they had
technique,
shit steel is what they had.
yeah, their technique is masterful.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
like
yeah.
go
That's
get them
right.
some like
That's
English
probably why they
steel.
had to make that sort of technique to make up for the poor quality of their steel.
And then like look at their armor. Their armor is a lot of woven armor. It's not necessarily like the plate
Metal
armor,
plates. Yeah, that's a good point.
even though it's the same around the same time period as when a lot of that was happening.
I
So
was,
that's
about,
just
and I was about to say, take like the Vikings or the English even, who are wearing like plates
studded leather.
or like mail, and had very simple swords, but simple swords that were incredibly effective
Mhm.
because of the
uh,
quality of the steel. Yeah,
yeah,
it's very
100%.
interesting.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like if you pick up Mrs. Play actually has a set of knives that she loves.
Mm.
They're Mac knives. They're like Japanese
Are those
technique.
like the really good knives that you have?
Yeah, those are the really good
Yeah.
knives we have. Like you can look up shun knives. You can look up there. It's one of those things where when you look up these knives, you can go on the website and be like, oh yeah, by the way, here's the lineage back to the blacksmith, like
Holy
that
shit!
created it. Yeah, it's really, it's
Wow.
kind of like the whole rice joke where it's like just here's the lineage of this one grain of rice, but here's this craft that somebody has honed.
Exactly. I mean,
Um,
it is. I mean, it's all family passed down like all the time too. Like it's not mass produced shit. It's shit that takes like a month to get to you because it's being made by hand.
Oh yeah, it's and they're so gorgeous. Now with swords. So you said you were grade school, puberty, made all those
Mhm.
jokes. Redwall, Naruto. Were you ever a Soul Calibur fan?
You know what? I've never ever played Soul Calibur. I remember when the one on the GameCube came out, Link was in it, and I was like, "Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool."
Soul
And
Calibur
then
too.
one came out and had Yoda and Darth Vader in it. I think that was four. I was like, "Yeah,
Yep.
that's pretty cool too." Um, and then the most recent one came out, and there's like Geralt and like also like there's like a bunch of other characters. But what's really impressive is all like the custom characters people make, and they look fucking wacky as shit.
Oh, it has some of the custom characters are great. That was my first that was one of my first forays into swords
Mm.
because as we've said, like I'm very new to the character action game. To
Yeah,
the Devil May Cries,
the
to
Bayonetta's.
Darksiders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like the first game that I got to play where it was like, here's this curved sword that I saw in like Aladdin once, the
Oh yeah,
falchion,
a
and
scimitar.
things, the scimitar, the falchion, yeah. And you see someone doing that in the long, broad movements. And I think I saw it
Hmm.
once in Indiana Jones when the guy gets shot.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Do you know the history behind that scene?
I do, but go ahead and say it.
Isn't it that Harrison Ford had malaria and he's like, I can't really do all the action shot that we had planned? Is that correct?
Yeah, he was sick. I don't know if it was malaria or if it was a stomach bug.
Oh,
But
Still
that's why
sick.
he was sweating so much.
Mm.
Because it was like, yeah, he's running, but no one else was sweating like he was. He was so sick that he just couldn't. So he pulls out the sword and like does it to run away, and then I think he literally runs off set to almost go shit himself.
Dang.
Yeah, it was apparently quite brutal.
Damn.
And it's one of those things where, and it's to your credit when we first got in, and you're like, I prefer a gun, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, there's that scene there for you. You can't cut through this. This isn't the
Exactly.
Matrix where he does that.
Hmm.
Now, do you have? So we talked a little bit about that in the pass down. Do you have a favorite like sword of legend um, or like mythos surrounding like a different sword there for you?
Favorite
Um,
sword of legend.
yes.
Um, Strictly talking in like a literary sense.
No, you can. You know what? I don't care. Let go
Okay.
ahead.
Because no, in a literary sense, because I haven't read in a long time, I need to start reading again. But the Ulfbert sword is pretty cool. You know about that?
I do not. What is that?
Um, it was basically like the first kind of steel that was made by the Vikings, and it just produced a really high quality blade. I think that's there's definitely more, but I'm blanking out on it. So let me do like a quick little Google search here. Haired sword. Oh shit. Um,
I want you to know the first thing that I pulled up was Altair sword, and I'm like, that is
incorrect.
really cool, but that's not what I'm looking for.
Ulfbert. Um,
Oh
da-da-da-da-da.
wow, that
Yeah,
is a,
and they just
oh,
have
it's just
these.
a very
They have Ulfbert and scripted on them, and they're just and there's only like 170 authentic ones, and
and
they
it's
just
really
look.
cool.
They just have that sort of like typical broad blade, short handle Viking sword look that I think looks really cool.
Yeah, it's like similar to like the Roman gladius
Yeah,
or
exactly. Very short, meant for chopping and getting onto the next person. Yeah.
yeah, except the gladius was meant to, like that those swords. Have you ever seen Attack on Titan?
Yeah.
You know how they have to like change out their blades
Yeah.
because so those swords were so cheaply made that like you'd hack twice and like you might cut off somebody's arm, but the blade's gonna be in the other half of the arm at the same time. Like
Really?
yeah, they would fall apart.
Just because they
They
were
were
so mass produced, because like
yep,
everybody was like a conscripted force. Yeah. Interesting.
yep. Unless you were like a legionnaire
Or
or
like
had
a
like
centurion or something. Yeah, you probably had
yeah,
more decent weapons.
which is really cool. I also liked there's a it was done in the Night Angel trilogy, which is my favorite go
Mhm.
to reading material by Brent Weeks, where he talks about like swords being somebody's legacy. So it's your inheritance, but it's also your caste. So if you have like
Mm.
a simple like poor iron sword
Just
versus
like
a
a
steel
sword
sword,
that's like blade cross hilt handle, you're a peasant.
you're a peasant. But like not even that. Like so you could have a simple sword, but let's say it's like very fine steel, and that's what's handed down to you.
Oh, got
Like
you.
okay, like sure it's simple, but
There's more
it,
like nuance to it.
yeah, and
Okay.
that was always something that I liked there. I had to think about that. Do me a favor because I said I was gonna have you do this. I want you to go ahead because we're going through like this playthrough of character action games, and
Uh-huh.
we're going through something else. But one of the next ones I want to tackle after we get to the two that we're on now, or the two that we're going to be going through soon.
Mhm.
Look up Chaos Eater.
Chaos Eater.
Yeah, you can even do Chaos Eater Sword.
Chaos Eater sword. Oh shit, I spelled that. There's a fucking like equal sign in my word for some reason. I'm so bad at typing. Chaos Eater. Oh, found it. What the fuck? Oh, that's a sword from Darksiders, isn't it?
That is the sword from Darksiders that War
Yeah,
actually walks around with.
yeah.
I actually playing currently streaming Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, Re-Reckoning actually the remake. And
How's that
I
going,
when
by the way?
I fought with it for 2 hours last night. Um,
Oh shit. So not
oh,
well.
I was having an issue with Elgato, so I got over to a new streaming service to use
Gotcha.
that's free, so it worked out.
I was
Um,
talking about the game, but I'm sorry you had technical difficulties.
oh, it's fine. The game is going great. I
Okay,
absolutely
good.
love it. I if you have a chance to play it, like even if you just want to download the original and get the all of that and the DLC for like $10,
$20, yeah.
highly recommend it. I'm excited for the new one because they're putting new DLC in it. But
Oh, nice.
they break down swords to classifications, and you'll relate to this. You have your long sword or your basic sword.
Hmm.
You have your daggers.
Hmm.
You have fey blades, which are like gauntlets where you hold them, and it's like picture your hands outstretched into fists,
Okay.
and your whole handle, and then off one side is a sword, and off the other side is a sword, and you'd carry two of those. So it's
Okay.
it's super dumb, and I love it. Um, and then they have great swords, which are your giant
Big, slow
like
moving, high hit, high damage, heavy
yeah.
DPS.
Character I'm building is using one of those, and the sword I use actually looks a lot like that.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and it just in the simple design there.
Is it supposed to, or is it just coincidence?
More coincidence. THQ
Oh,
Nordic
okay.
did do the remake or the re-release, and so the combat's been cleaned up a little bit. And
Gotcha.
I actually enjoyed Darksiders combat, and I know that's a almost a blasphemous statement to make.
Why is it
But
bad?
um, it's not platinum.
Okay.
But at the same time, like
Gotcha.
it came out at
Is
the
it
time where it's
simple?
like, huh?
Is it simple?
Yeah, it's a
It's
lot
not
of
like
timing
combos
presses.
out the ass. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
probably something. Yeah, I mean, because like you said, you weren't really deep into those kinds of games, so it probably helped you like dip your toe in.
mhm. And I can now run through some combos from that game. I can do some combo videos on that on the characters from 1, 2, and 3 because it's just really enjoyable. But I fell in love with that style there. So it's super. That's one more time. If you guys haven't seen it, it's the Chaos Eater sword from Darksiders. It's
Mhm.
built like a traditional Zanpakuto, not going from the Bleach method to it. But Zanpakutos were these giant cavalry swords. You might get two swings out of it.
Anti-cavalry swords,
Anti-cavalry swords.
because they're meant to like outplay a spear, weren't they not?
I thought they were literally cavalry. Like it was meant to like if you're charging with a horse, I'm gonna
Right.
swing at your horse's
I know,
legs.
but I thought like the length of the blade was to like play around a spear that a cavalryman would have.
Maybe like it.
Yeah, but
For,
like fuck the legs. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Because either way, like that horse is still galloping at you, and that spear still got
exactly,
range. So I'm
exactly.
probably gonna die. But the sword is almost like a spearhead or an arrowhead at the tip, and then you get the
Mm,
rest of the going down and around. And you'd swing it so the front end would be weighted. That
mm,
way, when you're swinging, get the full centrifugal force into somebody. Um,
gotcha.
and I don't know what it is about that. Like it has no hilt. I absolutely love that design.
Mhm.
Um, and if you watch Bleach, I thought Bleach did a great job with that. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with that at all?
Not. I never got into Bleach.
Um,
Wasn't my thing.
that's fine. If you ever want to like dip your toe into Bleach, literally just YouTube like Bleach fights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like don't
Are they
don't
good?
don't. Some of them are very good. Some of them are very dumb.
Oh, it's
Um,
very shonen, very mixed bag.
yeah. Yeah, definitely very very shonen. Not like Hunter x Hunter or something else with that. I think there's some other really good shows with that. But the sword is a representation of who you are. The main character Ichigo has a sword, and his sword is massive, and that's not even in its Bankai. Or the sword's called a Zanpakuto, and it's not even in his Bankai form. It looks just like a giant butcher knife, like
Okay,
extended
that's
out.
the giant like cleaver looking one. Okay.
Yeah, almost like a pyramid head sword.
Yeah, yeah.
And his is they go like, who's this guy running around with a sword without a hilt? Like how could you be that way? Like you have no defense. Um, and then like it's I always found it actually really interesting that it's like nope, and then you see his character and it's like no, his character is just like nope, I'm run up and punch into this situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I really enjoy that. Do you have now? How many games have you played? Would you say probably with swords? I know you said younger.
Oh,
You
Jesus Christ, Chris. I don't know.
can't even like round that one
All of
off. There,
them? I don't fucking know.
played every game with a sword
I have
ever.
like 1,200 hours into Skyrim, so that's like half my life right there.
How many swords does Skyrim have?
Fucking a million, dude.
Well, okay. So are they? I'm sorry. Are they like? Because some games will be like, we have swords, and it's like, here's your broadsword, here's your
Okay,
scimitar, here's your,
well,
and it's.
wait, have you ever played Skyrim? Oh, you didn't really like Skyrim. There is
I,
like different kinds of metal,
mhm.
and like there's maybe like let's just say there's 10 different kinds of metal. So there's a sword for each kind of metal. There's a dagger for each kind of metal. There's a hand axe. There's a war axe or a battle axe. There's a war hammer, and there is a long sword or a broadsword for every metal. So however many permutations you can get out of that.
So it'd be like broadsword mithril.
Yeah, like iron
Okay.
broadsword, steel broadsword, daedric broadsword. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's about what I was expecting. Because you're like there are a million. I'm like, all right, are there millions or are they just like new
Oh
metal?
yeah, and then there's I
Okay.
mean there's like different there's like unique looking weapons which are you know how games are.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's kind of why I was going with where I was with that
Yeah.
one. Do you have okay, do you have we'll stick with games. Oh, you know what? Do you have a sword like an iconic sword? It can be any sword, any genre that you're like, that's a really cool sword. Like maybe now as an adult, tastes have changed.
Mm.
Um,
The
or anything that
Master
you're
Sword has always been cool to me. I feel like that's sort of a cop out answer because of course, but
actually I was really hoping you were gonna say that.
okay, cool.
And this is why. What how many Zeldas have you actually played through?
Um, more than five.
Did you so can you go ahead because I have not played Zelda outside of like Ocarina of Time. Ooh, sorry about that. Ocarina of Time and um, really Link's Awakening.
Oh
Um,
yeah, you did play Link's Awakening. That's right.
if you were to go through and like, what is the history of the Master Sword?
Um, don't know how it got created, but the whole thing with it like is explained in Skyward Sword,
Hmm.
where there's always going to be a Link, there's always going to be a Zelda, and there's always going to be a Ganon. Um, because like Ganon's, I guess like essence isn't probably the right word. Yeah, but essence probably is the right word. It is called demise, and
Hmm.
like at the end of the game, he's like, "Ah, I curse your bloodline," bleh, and then fucks off and dies. Um,
As most
so
villains do.
exactly. So whenever I guess whenever Ganon shows up is when the Master Sword shows up. So, but
Now,
where does it come from originally? I don't fucking know. Fucking the ether. I don't know.
are you aware of what the sword is called before it's called the Master Sword?
I don't. Well, I mean, in some games you have to repower up the Master Sword, but
Hmm.
the Master Sword is always the Master Sword.
The Master Sword. So if we're going, I think it's Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
Okay.
Um, which it might be canonically the first or second Zelda game.
I have no
After,
idea where fucking
uh,
Link to the Past falls on the timeline. The timeline's so fucked up.
I'd have to find it because I know that there are like two or three. But
There's
it
like
was originally
three or four different timelines. Yeah.
it's called the Sword of Evil's Bane.
Oh yeah, that's just like a nickname of it. Yeah. That's like its moniker.
See, I always thought that the Master Sword was the nickname. And it's like, all right, well, we're like, I have the Sword of Evil's Bane. It's like, dude, you
That
can't.
yeah,
Like, you
yeah.
gotta, we gotta find something for that man.
No, it's
Um,
the Master Sword, the Sword of Evil's Bane. Yeah.
oh, okay. I see. I always thought it was the other way around. That's really cool.
Mm-mm.
Um, Now, because you said powering it up, I take it you played Wind Waker.
I have Wind Waker. Wind Waker. Yeah.
Wind Waker is probably I actually have never played it, but I've
Mhm.
seen I've at least watched like three Let's Plays of it, including
Fun
like
game.
the best friends. Huh?
It's a fun game.
I've heard nothing but great things about it, and
Yeah.
probably the best Let's Play of it is Game Grumps with Danny and
Uh,
Aaron,
yeah.
where they're just taking photos at like fighting Ganon.
Oh yeah. That was a long time ago.
Oh yeah, it was.
That remake
I'm doing
came
a
out
reach
like
right here.
that remake came out like when the Wii U was still the hotness.
Yes. But you had to power that sword back up because it
Yeah,
had
yeah.
been used to seal off Hyrule.
Exactly. It had been locked away and sealed off for so long, yeah. And you sort of have to you have to like repower it up in Phantom Hourglass, which I think is maybe not the sequel to that game, but like maybe a spiritual successor or some
I
shit like that. It's also Toon Link, but you have to boost power it up again. That game's pretty fun too, honestly, if you just want like a little Zelda game to pass the time on a DS.
oh, I mean, and a lot of the games are really good for that. And then I know like oh god, what's the one that you're currently that you've played with
Breath of the
Calamity
Wild.
Gate? Um, do you
Breath
have
of
to
the
repower it
Wild.
up? Do you have to repower it up in that one?
No, but it's been locked away for so long because the time between the calamity and where you are now, it's a 100-year gap. Link's
Hmm.
been like stasis for 100 years. So you do have to repower it up, and you have to have a minimum of, I think, 13 heart containers to power it up, because it like drains your life force
Oh wow.
to power itself up. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I mean, if you're going like the hero of time, it makes sense that you would get like that. The hero of time and life containers make sense. Like, are how like are you getting lives from past selves? Like you
I
get
think
like
it's
the
just
time
like it's like
pieces.
stealing your life force to power itself back up, because when you find it, it's all rusted and like chipped up and shit. So I think it's like actually draining your life to power itself up.
Um, but what I loved from Legend of Zelda Wind Waker when they powered up that sword is the first thing it gets is the sword. Like the sword's dull when you
Mhm.
see it. Like it's gray almost.
Yeah, yeah.
First power up, it has this brilliant white,
Mm-hmm.
and then the second power up, the wings of the hilt
He'll
unfurl.
flop out. Yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, it'll look super cool when it's all said and done. The Master Sword
Mhm.
always looks cool to me. The
It,
purple. There you go. Some purple representation in video
oh yeah,
games.
the purple, bluish purple, yeah.
Purple. Yeah.
And I think that's one of those great swords. And when you say it, like, and you go like he curses your bloodline, I'm like they're going back to the beginning just so we can get back to that like quick literary track. Is hey, look, you have the inheritance of your bloodline is doomed. Here's your sword.
Exactly.
Um,
That's another. I mean, that. I guess that. I mean, when you said that, yeah, you'll never forget that. I'm seeing that like pretty much everywhere now that I know what it is.
it's and honestly, like I can even go into like let's take a look at Metal Gear Rising. Do you mind if I quickly I'm gonna use the term tear it apart literary, but it's I'm not tearing it apart.
Okay, go ahead.
All
I
right.
don't care.
So Raiden comes in, right? Raiden gets his ass kicked, and he's like, okay, well, I can't keep being this person who I was. So if we were to take him on the hero's journey, and he's going through fighting these people, he becomes the reluctant hero because he's like, nah, my sword's a tool for justice and a tool
Hmm.
for this. Um, enter Jetstream Sam.
Okay.
Jetstream Sam looks at him and goes like, "No, you're denying your weapon its purpose."
Hmm.
He's like, "It's a tool of justice," and he's like, "Bullshit, dude. It's a weapon. Like
Hmm.
you don't say it's a justice weapon. It's a weapon for
The
justice.
sword.
Now
Yeah,
it's still a weapon first."
exactly.
So Jetstream Sam there takes on this moniker of the old wise one, like the Merlin esque, if you will,
Okay.
where he's going to get that. You play through that game, eventually like your sword, your original self breaks
Hmm.
and you're not strong enough to do it. And then it becomes excuse me, I'm so sorry. Then it becomes the actualization of who you are, who you're meant to be. And we start to see this during the monsoon fight
Hmm.
where he's like, no, he goes, all right, you guys want me to be let me become the person that you're telling me I actually am. And he
Exactly.
goes, it's time for Jack to let it rip. And that is Raiden's point where it's like, okay, you are no longer Raiden from Metal Gear Solid 4. You are no longer Raiden from the beginning of this game. You are now a whole new character.
And also an old character, because I mean that's what he was when he was a child soldier too. You
Mm-hmm.
know, he was good at killing people with knives. Like that was his
And,
thing. You know, was Jack the Ripper.
and then you come to the point where you meet Sam, and now Sam has been your mentor, albeit abstractly, but he's been
Yeah,
like,
antagonistic mentor. Yeah,
yeah, he's like, no, you get on my level, and then you do.
exactly.
And then at the end of the game, when it's like, okay, the chips are down, here comes out the real sword. Here comes out the actual portion of who you are. And I like the fact that one of the things like when you see that because we lose the military aspect of Raiden's sword in the beginning. It goes from being like this unique different sword to a kind of a katana.
And I feel like that's sort of his loss as a personality, as a soldier, and more of into, I guess, what he thinks he is now. You know.
And then we get Sam's sword.
Hmm.
And it still has that soldier feel because it like the I'm going to say the receiver, the hilt
Exactly. Yeah.
is a receiver for an M4, and you
Yeah.
fire it.
Hmm.
Um, it's this really beautiful transformation. Like it's a like you can follow the hero's journey. You can see the inheritance of the sword, of him being like, okay, here you are at this point, and it's like this would be the sword that he would like hang up in his dojo or hang up like in his home.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's the family lineage passed down to you. And Sam, like for him, it's actually a family lineage. It's not necessarily the sword, but the
Yeah.
technique. So yeah, there's a hot, dirty take of
Oh, I mean, I feel like that was a very good deconstruction of, I mean, of basically where we are up until the game. You know,
it's so good. I'm so excited that I was like, hey, you were like, let's play this one. I'm like, all right, let's play this one, and it is such a beautiful
very fun. Yeah, it's a fun game.
beautiful game for that. Now, so you said the Master Sword. Now the Master Sword. Have you played like Majora's Mask or um I think Majora's Mask is the one. How do you feel about like having this sword? Let's say, what about like cursed blades? How do you feel about that?
Mm, interesting. Well, how are they cursed?
Um,
I feel like that has a lot to do with it. Because if it's just cursing you and draining your health, I think that's kind of stupid. But if it's like cursing you with like, like endless power, but sort of like Soul Edge,
mhm.
like it, because I mean I know a little bit about Soul Calibur. It'll completely transform you into something that you never thought you would be, but it gives you complete, unchecked, like unrivaled power. Then I feel like it's a pretty good trade off.
um, that's actually the story of it's like Siegfried, I think is his name. Um,
Siegfried, I think.
yeah, and everyone else knows him as Nightmare because
Yeah,
he goes on the quest to find the Soul Calibur,
I find Soul Edge on accident.
gets Soul Edge, and then he's like, I still have to go back to my this area and save it. So he takes Soul Edge with him because
Why not? This sword has
it,
an eyeball. Because fuck
yeah,
yeah.
it's super strong. Because I was even thinking that, or if you've ever played Ninja Gaiden, or there's a game out there called Shinobi on the PS2, and I
I've
think
heard of it.
this sword is supposed to be Masamune.
Mhm.
Is the name of the sword. And it's this cursed sword that two best friends, two brothers, like have to fight at the very beginning of the game. One strikes down the other,
Mhm.
and it kills him. And what that does is that pacifies the sword. So what he does is um, the loser has to take that sword, and if I'm not mistaken, he has to like either commit seppuku or something like that with it, and the sword drains his life force into it. So when the
Uh-huh.
game starts and you go out and these demons are attacking, you fight this ninja that is reverse color view. He's the white version of what you are, and you
Mhm.
slash him, and then the sword awakens and goes, "You never killed the sacrifice for me." And so the sword starts draining your health, and you have to do combos and take out people in a certain amount of time to get the blood. Otherwise, if the
What the
gauge fills up, it just instantly kills you.
That sounds stressful as shit.
As a kid, it was. It's a really, really like brilliant concept because it's
That
it's
is really smart. Yeah.
it's your like Ninja Gaiden. It's your like close the sword in the sheath, and then everything slashes and breaks. And
Mhm.
so that was always a really cool one there for you. Do you have any like, it can be video game mythical sword like that you're like, oh, that's always a cool one because it's supposed to do this thing. One of my favorites is like, we could go into like the gun blade from Final Fantasy, or even the keyblade from Kingdom Hearts, since we're going through
Oh,
that.
gotcha. Nothing immediately springs to mind when I think of something like that. When you said Gunblade and Keyblade, like those are the only two examples that I can think of off the top of my head.
Um, I was thinking about that one for a second. I was like, there's got to be a sword. I enjoyed the sword from I think it's God of War 2, um, which I think is supposed to become Excalibur later, but it's the sword that Kratos like pours his power into, like all of his godly power,
Hmm.
in order to fight Zeus. I
Oh, this is a blue one that you could stand
Yeah.
up and
Um, I've always enjoyed that. What about Dishonored? What did you feel about the sword from Dishonored?
can you even really call it a sword? It was like a switchblade on it. I mean, it was just like a short sword. I thought it was really cool. I liked it a lot.
I thought it was supposed to be like a rapier, like it was because you're like it's steampunk post Victorian era, but it
Yeah.
was still that like
I always just thought it was like a small, like sort of, I don't know, just like a small like knife, just like slip in between ribs real quick. Because like you're
No.
supposed, I mean, unless you play the game wrong, like I did the first time, you're not supposed to really like be in open combat.
Oh no, you're 100% correct. Like I enjoyed it because I like doing counters and getting the parries down.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so for me, I was like, oh, this is really cool, and I greatly enjoyed that weapon. Because I think it's supposed to be like a hand and a half sword for you. Um, but I just loved how I flipped it out. And you're right. It was like a switchblade and then an
yeah,
exacto knife at the same time. It was
exactly. Yeah,
I
like it's
thought that was
telescopic knife. It was really cool.
it was so good. And then let's go to if we're gonna like we'll use the last little bit of time because I figured we've talked about the history swords, talked about like our past with swords.
Mhm.
Um, do you have any sword that you could like gush over? Like just look how cool this sword is, or how cool this sword was.
Not really, but I mean, I tend to like simpler looking swords over than like something like extravagant. Um, like I can't think of like some like regular ass looking sword. Like Excalibur is not really explicitly said to be like this like beautiful weapon, is it?
Um, no, it's. Did you ever actually see the Return of the King movie?
No, I haven't.
Um, if you were to look up like Return of the King sword,
Okay.
um, that would probably get your closest to Excalibur because, like
Shit.
Tolkien went to Oxford. Um,
Okay, well there's a good example. Hold on. Continue talking though. Sorry.
Tolkien went to Oxford, and there's theories that he wrote a lot of his stuff based on different aspects of Oxford. Like there's a
Hmm.
the dormitory and the school that he went to because there are different colleges that you can be at within Oxford. One of them, like if you looked into
Oh,
the
did you mean Return of the King as in Lord of the Rings?
yeah,
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I thought we were talking about Anduril. Yeah. I fucking love how Anduril looks, dude. That shirt looks so cool to me.
is
So
that the
yes,
sword?
I guess there is, yeah, that's the Aragon sword. Yeah, I guess there
Okay,
is a sword I can gush over.
very clean line work, very simple
Super
wrappings.
cool, yeah. It's super simple, yeah.
Um, do you have a least favorite style of sword?
You know, I'm not a big fan of like the wide bladed ones. I mean, scimitars can look kind of cool sometimes. Um, just things that look stupid, honestly. I don't like things that look stupid. If that, I mean, if that gets you anywhere.
Like is that like are we going like the Buster sword? Um,
Buster Sword's kind of cool though, but yeah, that is something stupid. Some just, and I guess I'm gonna sound like a bit of a hypocrite for this because I like Berserk so much. But something that doesn't look like it can be feasibly used is sort of bordering on kind of dumb to me.
you showed me some of the swords he gets before he gets Dragon Slayer, like when he's actually with the Band of the Hawk,
Yeah,
and you're like, yeah, this is one of his swords. I'm like, that is so fucking dumb.
yeah, they do look because they're so narrow. Is they're not, they don't have like the same like thickness, you know, same girth.
Oh, this is gonna be a fun episode. We're gonna listen to this
Yeah.
later. Like, oh, why do we do this episode? Um, do you have any style or like sword fighting, sword play, like maybe when you were younger, you were like, I like that's like it just wasn't as cool to you. It wasn't as like romanticized. Um, and now like as an adult, you're like, no, that's actually really cool.
Sword fighting in general. I mean, I think I kind of went where you're going. Where you said where it sounded like you were saying that like sword fights looked cool as shit like when you were a kid. Um, and like, well, maybe I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you could like tell me
All right.
again before I look like an asshole.
No, you're good. So for me, like as a kid, like as an adult, one of the coolest styles I think there is like fencing, not like
Oh,
broadsword fencing, but like actual. I
like
have a rapier, I have a saber. We're doing
yeah,
this on a
yeah,
ship.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's kind of cool. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, kind of.
Yeah, Count of Monte Cristo,
Yeah,
Three
yeah,
Musketeers.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Um, like as a kid, I'm like, wow, like look at that little like look at like I'm gonna go get a katana and I'm gonna cut so cool and I'm
Yeah.
gonna do
Okay.
this thing. Yeah.
I see what you mean. Okay. What I thought you were asking is like, what do I think of like sword fights between when I was a kid and now. And what I was gonna say is, I used to think they were like so flashy and cool when I was a kid, but now, I mean, I know that a sword fight didn't last more than like 2 seconds. Like you either got hit or you didn't, and like like oh fuck, I can never remember what they're called, but the samurai movies.
Oh, the Kurosawa films.
Thank you. Yeah, where they're just like standing in a field and then they run at each other and then one falls over. I feel like that. I mean, that's pretty accurate, is it not? Because like, really doesn't take much to kill somebody.
It doesn't. There's I read that from All You Need Is Kill during one of our last sessions where we were playing it, and they talk about the masters who fought like 1,000 battles or 500 battles, and uh, I want to say it's done in. Did you ever watch Rurouni Kenshin?
You know, I watched the first episode, thought it was tight, and then never watched it again.
You should watch Rurouni Kenshin. If you see something that looks similar called Samurai X, don't watch that.
Okay.
It's a bad translation, but the manga Samurai X is better than the Rurouni Kenshin novel.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say it was like a bad translation of Rurouni Kenshin. I was like,
It
well, I
is.
mean, the English dub is a pretty bad translation of Rurouni Kenshin.
Oh no, it's Batosai because in the English dub it's Batosai the Manslayer in Rurouni Kenshin. It's Batosai the Slasher in Samurai X. Like it has enough
Oh,
changes and the voice actors just aren't right.
gotcha.
Um, but they in Rurouni Kenshin, one of they depict it like the first episode, and later on when he fights like one of the, you learn that the Batosai, the Manslayer,
Mhm.
uh, it's not the Manslayer. He is
What
a
is that?
Manslayer,
Oh, are you
but there were
referring to Kenshin?
Manslayers.
Wait,
Um,
wait, referring to Kenshin or?
to Kenshin, yeah, he's Batosai the Manslayer.
Yeah, yeah.
But like third season, you learn that there are Manslayers. Um,
Oh, with like similar conditions to him because he is like fucked up PTSD, right? Like that's his whole thing.
He does, and then he's got a his sword is called the Reverse Blade Sword.
Mhm. So
So
if
when
you
he
kill anybody,
swings it
that's
like
like he like
normal,
triggers himself. Yeah.
yeah. But it's during one of the final ones, like you watch him like when he fights, and he actually has to draw. When he draws the sword out normally, it's a dull side, but when he draws it out reversed, the draw is more awkward. And when he flips it out, though, it's actually the blade of it because the sword is now the reverse blade sword is being used correctly.
Mhm.
And the like one of the final fights is just him standing there, and he goes through, and you watch him do a ton of things where like he's fighting at one point, he fights a guy who's called the Thunder because he brings his sword down and he shatters something like 3 feet away because of the
Shit.
velocity of it. And when he fights him, you see him do the thing, and the other guy goes, they're like, no, he's got to win, look how much stronger he is. Like
Mhm.
he shatters this, and he goes, no, I'm going up against a real master compared to myself. Like what I did was a parlor trick. This is somebody who ends fights in a swing. Like yes, I can do that, but
Right.
it's only in very like instances where I can do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
um,
Interesting. I do need to watch that.
you should, because I would love to do an entire like, hey, let's talk about that. I think it's on either Hulu or
It's on
Netflix.
Hulu. I have it saved on Hulu.
Oh, I will go through and rewatch that too.
Okay.
Because I would do an entire podcast on that because of how brilliant it is, especially for you liking sword fighting and knowing
I thought it was cool. Like I said, I
enough.
thought the first episode was tight. I just didn't watch past it for some reason.
Uh, it's anime; it happens.
I did that with
Um,
Vinland Saga too. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Anyway.
Vinland, that's on Amazon, isn't it?
Yeah,
Where anime goes to die.
yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah, Psychopaths is on there. Trust me. All right, so we're hitting our hour mark. Do you have any finishing thoughts on swords?
I don't think so. I think we had a pretty good chat today.
I do too. I'm sorry for dominating so much of that, but
Oh no, you're totally fine. You know I'm kind of quiet anyhow.
the bold-faced lie of the podcast.
Oh well, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know what I know exactly what you're saying there. Um, so I guess the question would post out to the winners and to the listeners is, do you have a favorite type of sword?
Yeah.
You have a favorite type of sword play?
Mm.
You have a sword that you think is really really dumb and really really cool, or anything of similar nature? Please let us know because like I didn't even get into the Red Queen or uh, Yamato or the Yamato or Rebellion.
Red
Um,
Queen.
Red Queen is the sword that uh, Nero uses in Devil May Cry 4 and 5.
Oh.
The sword with the it's so dumb, it's so cool.
Oh,
But
with
it's
the
so dumb.
oh oh yeah, with the motorcycle throttle on it.
Oh my, it's so dumb, but it's
I
so cool.
never I never got that shit down. I was like, oh, I can rev it. That's cool, I guess. And I never used it because I could never get it right.
With the PS5, so we'll do that because we'll end on that because I love I love Devil May Cry 5.
Mhm.
Um and I'll probably end up getting it again on the PlayStation 5 instead of like the Xbox.
I wonder if they'll just give it to you because you bought it on last gen already.
Well, I bought it on Xbox. Um
Oh. Yeah, you just said that. Sorry, I wasn't
no,
paying
you're good.
attention.
They changed the mechanic for controllers. I showed you that last time when you look at a PlayStation 4 controller, the way the rumble pack works,
Oh yeah.
the haptic feedback. So I kind of spoilers for everyone on the channel. I want to do some one off series, and we're working on a name for that. Where we just like, hey, let's look at this. This wouldn't be fun for a let's play, but like
Three
here's like
episodes.
3 episodes. Um, the haptic feedback in that though is now it's no longer the rumble where it's like it's a loud rumble, it's a soft rumble.
Mm-hmm.
It is it's like, hey, there's this buzz right here and it might be fainter. So what'll happen is as you start to hit the enemy, you hit the trigger and you can begin to do exceed, which is the
Oh,
move where you
that's
rev it as you go through,
right. Yeah,
and then your
you
next
told
move
me
is the
this already. Yeah. I
um,
remember now.
or if you're playing Demon Souls and they're
Yeah,
swinging down.
oh, because you said it like trivializes the combat in that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah, that's what we'll end it. It's like that's one of my favorite swords. I will say like you said your favorite sword is the Master Sword.
Oh,
Uh,
my favorite sword is Dragon Slayer.
okay, it would be Dragon Slayer. My favorite sword, as just based on a lot of extra reading that I've done and a lot of like deep diving and looking into it, is actually Kylo Ren's lightsaber from the new
Really?
trilogy, the sequel trilogy. Yep. Um,
Why?
so the Kylo Ren comics came out because, of course, they did. Uh, and when he gets that lightsaber, the whole changing of a lightsaber crystal is it gets assigned to you, and the lightsaber kind of turns the color of who you're meant to be. Um,
Oh.
and when you're a Sith, you pour all of your energy and its negative and what have you into into the crystal, and the crystal bleeds and it
Mm.
makes the crystal turn red. You can purify it again, but then it just stays white, which is what Ahsoka Tano gets.
Dude, being a Sith would be so fucking tight.
I I'd rather like I would be a Sith just because I'd want to use all forms of the Force.
Yeah. I don't have
But
to like I don't have to be accountable.
I would
I
still
don't
be
have
accountable. But I like look, dude. If I can force lightning a crowd and be like, okay, well, everyone's now subdued because you've all been slightly electrified.
anyway, I
Like
can just kill them all at once too.
yeah, like fight
And
fight
there's no crowd.
yeah, fight smarter, not harder. Like just but for like I also would just use force push like an asshole. It'd be like someone's like trying to reach for something, just keep pushing it like slightly, just annoy the shit out of
Like
somebody.
your friend's trying to get in the car and you keep driving up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But Kylo Ren, he takes the crystal, and you watch him start to do that. And one of the things that they show, if you ever watch Star Wars Episode 3, is Hayden Christensen's eyes, Anakin's eyes, change to that sickly yellow. And you watch,
Oh man.
um, yep, you watch
Yo,
Kylo
when
Ren before
did that
he's,
happen?
huh?
When did that his eyes turn yellow?
Episode 3,
Yeah, but
Revenge of the
when?
Sith. Right after like the younglings, like right after he kills the younglings.
Hmm.
He walks in, starts killing the younglings, and you notice his eyes change. Like the very next scene when he's like, "Hey, I want you to go to Mustafar to kill all the separatists." But in the comic, Kylo squeezes down on the gem and starts pouring his hatred into it, and then you notice his hand starts bleeding.
Hmm.
And the reason that he's doing this is because his whole conflict is he's named after one of the greatest Jedi ever, Obi-Wan Kenobi. His
Ow. You know what? We're gonna have to talk about this more when we're not pushed for time because I'm like interested now.
Oh, I can totally do it. And this will be why I get into it. And we'll end it after this. Is so he does this, and he's named after that Jedi. His brother or his uncle is Luke Skywalker, the greatest Jedi to ever exist. You know,
Hmm.
because they're all dead. His grandfather
De
is Darth Vader, the greatest.
facto greatest
Yeah,
Jedi to ever live.
yeah.
Terrifying.
His grandfather is Darth Vader. His mom is Princess Leia. His father's Han Solo. You know, he's got this. He's got all these expectations on him,
For
and
greatness, yeah.
he's like, "Who am I?" So he crushes it in his hand, and it begins to get unstable. And he puts it in the hilt of his, and that's why it crackles. And you never see like part of his eye turns red, but his eyes never turn the same color as a Sith. So he's bad, but it's just who is he?
Yeah, like what is his deal?
He doesn't know who he is. He
Oh,
is
that's it.
completely lost, and he's been manipulated the entire time. He's a bad guy. He does some redeeming things,
Hmm.
but you're
He
never
is a
meant
bad.
to like him. Say again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I thought you were like thinking or something. I said he is a bad guy though.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's a bad guy. Like he comes back as Ben Solo. That's his redemption at the end of the Rise of Skywalker.
Hmm.
Uh, and he gets to become one with the Force because he comes back and is like, You know what? I can't let this happen.
Hmm.
Uh, and but he throws away his lightsaber, and that lightsaber is a manifestation of all of his insecurities, as well as somebody that he's kind of pretending or trying to be, but never really figured out. And that's why I loved his lightsaber and all of what it represented.
Hmm. That looks
Mhm.
cool as shit too.
Oh, it totally does. The crackle, the fights with it when it crackles, and it's just like, oh, what is this? Why are you holding that? It's gonna explode in your hand. Like, oh,
Yeah, what
it's
do you
so
mean it
great.
crackles though?
Go watch the trailer. Like, look at it. Look at his lightsaber versus like watch the fight scene between him and Rey or him and Finn. His lightsaber crackles. It doesn't. It's not the like wheel, and it's like that super clean line. Like
Oh,
it is. It is unstable.
gotcha.
Yep. All right, winners. And with that, that is where we will end this one. Um, as always, you might have gotten here, or we might be clicking the wrong button, but by getting here, you click the right button. So
Hmm.
don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter. You can listen to this on our YouTube channel, Wrong Button, as well as iTunes and Spotify, and Google Music podcast. Almost anywhere that podcasts can be found.
Yeah, listen wherever you listen to podcasts.
And thank you very much for joining me, Nick. I greatly
Yeah,
appreciate it.
no problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, keep it weird.